Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah, and my talk today is about discussing some little tips on designing products that save your users time. It's not going to be a long talk. This is just generally about being conscious about the kind of decisions that we make when we build screens, so that we don't have our users spending more time than necessary when they're using the products, because that might mean at the end of the day that they just get annoyed and leave. Um, so the problem I'm trying to address here is that sometimes as developers, I mean, if you're a developer, obviously you treat your apps like a playground where you are more interested in crafting complex features, experimenting with the latest technologies, and adding some eye-catching animations to showcase your skills. If I learned in CSS how to do animations, then I want to use that on my products. But users don't care about the technical magic behind the scenes. They just see apps as your simple tools to get a job done quickly and live. This creates some perception gap between us, the developers, and the users that we're building the screens for. Because more often than not, you find yourself building a feature that nobody asked for, and at the end of the day, you're gonna have to remove it. So how can we go about solving this problem? For aesthetics, designing for predictability. Designing for predictability means creating interfaces that behave in ways that your users expect. For example, if I go into an app, expect my navigation menus to be at the top or at the side. If there's a search feature on the page, then I expect it to be also on the top or with the right icon like a search. If there's the settings, I'm expecting a settings icon, like things like this. And also critical actions should be placed where users would naturally look for them or immediately recognize and know how to interact with, because that's what feels familiar for them. If, for example, you give your users a checkbox where a user can only select one option out of multiple instead of just presenting with a radio button, then this just throws them off. It's a bit confusing. And designing for predictability keeps users from trying to figure out where to click or how to perform tasks, and it allows them to focus on the actual goals that they are trying to achieve by using your application. In most applications, simplest apps are usually the best, but if you're a developer, there's really no fun in that. And then another tip would be being able to, designing your apps such that they enable quick recovery, like allowing your users to correct mistakes without starting over, or making your error messages more actionable and clear. Maybe allowing flexible navigation so that user can move back and forth without losing work. Just as a quick example, I asked AI to make me a little demo. Say, for example, I'm on this form here and I'm trying to register. And then I do something like that. It says enter your password. And that. And then the moment you try, sorry. The moment you try to submit, it says, oh, there's a password mismatch, please try again. But if you look, all the fields have been cleared here. That means that I have to start over and check if my password, and also this message is probably misplaced, because if I'm a user, I'm expecting this to be under the field where the error would actually be. Another example that a user might find annoying is say, for example, I'm trying to register also, and I put in my password. And then somehow I forgot to enter my username. And then when I try to do create account, it says invalid input, fair enough. Then I try to add my username again. Now it says username must have 10 or more characters. Cool. Then I do that. So now it says user name must have underscores. This is obviously very annoying if I'm a user. At the end of the day, I might just quit this and leave your app. I'll be like something like, oh, I'll resume later. I'll probably never come back. So it's very important to making sure that your error message are actionable and they're very clear. If you show me an error message, it should be very simple that I can fix it in the next step without just being on the street. Sorry, being on the screen for a long time trying to correct that error. And then the next step would be minimizing distractions. I asked an AI to generate this image for me. I mean, an image of a distracting app. Obviously, this was exaggerated, I think, for dramatic effect, because who would want to build something like this? But the point here is when you're building an app, you try to remove unnecessary steps or clicks or approvals that like don't have anything to do with the current task that the user is on. And like I said, keeping the interface focused on the user's primary task. If there's a lot of other things that I need to be doing on the app, I don't need to see everything at the same time, because this also that just throws me off. If I'm here to do, I don't even know what this app is supposed to be doing. If I'm here to be doing one action and there's these buttons and icons and everything, now I'm distracted. I'm thinking, oh, what does that button do? What is that 50% thing of? I end up spending more time than necessary because you're just throwing everything in my face. The next one would be choosing the right elements for your UI. When designing complex digital products, balancing simplicity with powerful functionality becomes a critical challenge. Like deciding what element to use doesn't seem like a big deal, especially if those elements achieve the same task. But sometimes choosing to use like a select drop down over a checkbox on a screen that already has too many steps or too many options, that means you're adding one more click for your user, because on our select, I have to add one more click to open an option, see everything, click, and maybe click again to hide it if you're doing it wrong. Also, deciding whether to do inline editing or separate editing page, for example, means that well, inline editing lets your users modify content directly within the page while keeping them in context and reducing navigation. While separate edit page may require loading like a new page, breaking your user's flow and possibly increasing the time to complete that task. Another example would be deciding to use a model over inline notifications. Also, more or less the same thing. Your models by nature interrupt the workflow. They force the user to take immediate action, which can be useful for critical decisions, but it might be disruptive for routine tasks. While inline notifications can provide feedback or alerts without blocking the user from what they're currently doing. Obviously, there's a good case to use each of those things, but just being conscious about like, is this the right element that I should be here using here or not? That could also that also important. And if you're a developer, there's a lot of materials that you can check online. If you're not sure about what to use, you can always just do research. Myself, sometimes I just do something like it's a search tag as simple as radio button versus drop down select, and more often than not, I find some link to UI UX design page that tells you something like the difference between the two. Not the difference, I'm sorry. I mean, that tells you when it's right to use one and the other, and also makes you aware of the kind of complexity that just something as simple as making that kind of decision can bring can mean for your users. Another example would be deciding whether to use a tab or accordions on your page. Well, tabs present multiple sections side by side, allowing your users to quickly switch between content without expanding anything. There the opposite is like the accordions hide content behind collapsible sections, which can reduce clutter. Yeah. So it might be okay in some cases, but it also may force users to click multiple times to access information. If I have like 3 sections, I have to like, say for example, I'm reading section 1 and the contents are very huge. If I want to exit on that current sections, I might have to scroll all the way up to click on the accordion again to close it so I can see the next thing. So those kind of things might seem like very small decisions to make when you're building an app. We usually don't care. Using a select or a checkbox is not something that we tend to think about. But it could be meaning that you're adding one more click, or even adding one more second on your app for your users, which could be annoying. I mean, if I was one click away from leaving your website, then that's the final click for me. That's all I have for today on this. Like I said, there's a lot of materials that you can check online if you're a developer with not like if you don't have a lot of UI UX design. There's a lot of materials you can check online when you're building your apps to help you make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.